Hello everybody, I'm Simon Thomas. I've put together this training for a handful of reasons. I've been in the real estate industry for about 13 years now, and I started off selling dollar homes 13 years ago, coming out of the hospitality business, and not knowing anything about real estate, just get into the dollar game, and it was nuts, it was crazy to 3-4 years later selling anything from a dollar home to multi-million-dollar homes within 3 years and building a $30 million book of business. After about 7 years of doing that, I started my own brokerage, and we grew to about $400 million in sales, over 120 agents, very quickly within 3 years. And I get the question all the time, Simon, how did you do it? What do you do? That sounds exciting, that sounds great. And sometimes everybody thinks that it's a very complicated thing. It's not complicated. It's very time consuming, and you have to be on all the time. You have to be motivated. You have to be persistent. You have to be all of these things, but it's not hard. And we have trained, myself and our team here, we have trained hundreds of agents over the last 7 years at our current company, and really help them grow their business from 3 million to 6, to 6 to 20. We've had agents go from 2 to 25 million. And we kind of always bring it back to what I'm about to explain to you guys right now. It's pretty simple. There's a million different ways to grow your business, okay? But when I look at real estate, I'm going to revert back to real estate a lot, but this applies to any type of salesperson. You have mass, you have people that just burn and turn, right? They want to get the deal done, they're on to the next. Want to get the deal done, on to the next. Zero relationship with the person you're doing the transaction with. Then there's the way that I like to build business, the way that I like to coach is the relationship based. I sell you a home, I get to know you, I'm your friend, I work with you for over six years, and get countless amounts of transactions from your friends, your brothers, their friends, their brothers, their coworkers, and I call it the ripple, okay? How do you get your phones to ring? When you get into business and you get into sales, okay? I used to be envious. There was a time in my life where I really didn't have much going on in the very early stages of this business. And I used to say, man, I'm envious of these guys who are on the phone all day. How are they getting their phones to ring? And, I thought a lot about the hospitality business and being with my father. And I remember being 8 years old, and I was with my dad at the banquet hall business. And Monday through Thursday, you have these massive buildings. I mean, huge buildings that were vacant. Nobody's in them. And I remember being there during the week with him and saying, man, Dad, this place is so quiet. It's so big. It's kind of an eerie feeling. I remember thinking that, and him saying, all right, son, come here. Let me explain something to you. Our business is done Friday through Sunday. Yeah, we have some little parties during the week, but 90% of our income is done Friday through Sunday. And he takes me back to the back offices, and there's a room. It wasn't a very big room, with a bunch of people sitting in it, and the phones are ringing. And he says to me, what do you hear? And I remember hearing the phones nonstop ringing. He said, I get nervous when those phones stop ringing. But as long as those phones are ringing, we have money coming in. Simon, if you get good at getting your phones to ring, no matter what you do in life, you'll never go broke. And that kind of stuck with me. But it sounds easier said than done. Keep my phones ringing. But there's a lot of things that need to be happening to get those phones to ring. A lot of people get into the business and they think the transaction is what they do. When I speak to realtors, I hear it all the time. What do we do here? It's the first question. What do you do as a realtor? Oh, I sell homes. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, are you showing houses all day? Are you, you're writing contracts all day? You have, a normal person works 40 hours. Okay, a workhorse, somebody who's really, humping in this business, works countless hours, right? It's nonstop. You get that phone to ring, it's 24/7. But, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I sell homes. No, there's much more than that. Selling homes is 20% of what your business is. There's all this other stuff you need to be doing. And it's not complicated stuff. It's not rocket science, but it's not sexy either, which a lot of people don't do it because it's not sexy, right? They think they need to think outside the box. They think they need to do something nobody else has done. And that's not the case, right? The top realtors in the country, the top salespeople in the country, they kind of just do the same thing over and over again, and they do it very, very well. And that's about 3 years in is when I started thinking, what's my systems? What's my process? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna scale this business to the point where I can make $1 million, right? And that is where I came up with what I'm about to show you guys. So, selling homes, guys, is very important, but the pipeline is even more important. So pending units to me, how many people I'm constantly working with, right, was more important than the actual deal itself. Because the bigger the pipeline, the more people I'm working with, right, I'm never going broke. And I knew that as that got bigger, my income got bigger. So how do we build this pipeline? Okay, there's a handful of things I'm gonna show you. Bucket one, all right, I look at as a bigger bucket, okay? Now this is like anybody in your territory, anybody that could potentially be a client, all right? So again, reverting back to real estate, if you're a realtor and you're licensed in the state of Michigan or Florida or Ohio, whatever it is, you are able to sell all over that state. So anybody in that state could potentially be your client that's looking to buy, sell, or lease a home, right? If you're talking about homes, commercial properties, whatever, insurance, right? Whatever your territory is, whatever your area is, whoever your clientele is, people that have no clue who you are as a person, right? But potentially could be a client one day. I call this the mass, okay? If you look at the mass, all right, that's bucket one. Now, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get people from bucket one to bucket two. Okay, so this is bucket one, right? We're trying to get them to bucket two, which I always say is a little bit smaller of a bucket. This, I call it your SOI. What's your SOI? Sphere of influence, okay? These are people that know you. They might not be invited to your wedding if you had a wedding, right? They're not your closest friends and family, but they are people that, if you were in the grocery store and they were to see you, they'd be like, hey, Simon, how you doing? Oh, good, Rachel, how are you, right? Like, you know of each other. But it's not, I think I know them, or I saw them, on social media. I know them, but they don't know me. That's not your SOI. These are people that if you were to run into them, they know your name and you know theirs. You might not know every detail about them, but you can hold a little conversation with them, right? And bucket three, okay? This, to me, is a smaller bucket, okay? And this, I call this your VIPs. Now, your VIPs are people that you've done business with, your influencers, your people that you know their families, they've been to your house, you've been to their houses, you've entertained them, your families have entertained them. These are people that, again, I wouldn't even call it your wedding list. I would call this, people that trust you, that know you, right? That if they were to run into somebody and need, and you're an insurance person and insurance salesman and they need insurance, they're going to refer you. These are the people that care for you, okay? And you care for them, all right? It's important. So you have bucket one, bucket two, bucket three. The goal, guys, is moving people down the line. And the bigger these buckets get, the more money you make. So this is the game we're playing. This is what we do every day. So when I tell our salespeople, the salespeople I have coached and trained over the last 7 years, I always go back to this. Guys, what are your systems and processes for these buckets? And I can always tell when an agent comes to me and they're a little lost or a little down, 45 minutes with them just redoing this, they already know it, kind of re-sparks some things. I can see it. They get excited again. They're like, okay, I got off track. I got stuck a little bit, but just go back to the basics and we can start drumming up business again. Okay, now, what are you doing for each bucket? I always say, let's start small. If you've never done this before, I talk about, I always talk, relate sales to getting healthy, losing weight, working out. A lot of people can relate to that, okay? So let's start small. I need to lose 100 pounds. I'm gonna start running 5 miles a day starting tomorrow, eating 1,000 calories. It doesn't work. I will crack, I will break, it doesn't work. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves, I've been to a lot of different conferences, a lot of different trainings, is you get trainers who talk about this stuff and give you great ideas, your mind is racing. You leave there excited, confused, all these different emotions are going on. You're extremely motivated, but then you get back to your desk and it's like, what do I do? Oh my God, where do I start? How do I do it? And then you stop, you don't do it, okay? And it's kind of sad, but when we talk to the masses, like at our companies, 1 or 2 people out of 100 will implement what we're talking about. And I find it kind of interesting, but I get it, okay? Some people just kind of need a roadmap. They need to know what to do every day. They need to break it down, right? They need it broken down. Like it's one thing to explain to you the big picture, but then how do we really break this thing down and execute it, right? Because execution is the only way this is going to get done. Knowing it up here is one thing, but the people that can execute, those guys are gold. In our businesses, if we can find those people, we try to hold on to them forever, okay? And we try to do a lot of business with them, okay? Now the mass. What kind of marketing, what kind of things can you be doing? Advertising, what can you be doing for the mass? You have a handful of things, all right? You could be doing, traditional advertising, right? Like these are like your magazines, your ads, right? You could be doing, billboards, right? You have your billboards. You could be doing Zillow, right? These are all things that you could be doing, okay, that get you in front of people you've never met before. There's 100 different ways to do this, okay? Farming a neighborhood, you've never met these people. Getting them to know who you are. The mass, advertising to the mass, I always say, guys, is the most expensive, okay? Why is it the most expensive? Zillow's expensive, okay? Buying leads is expensive. Farming is expensive. Conversion is on those are very low. They're expensive, right? Billboards, they're expensive. These are just examples. Social media. People think social media is definitely a great way to drum up business, but if you do it properly, putting out content, doing it the right way, and trying to get people to call you is extremely expensive, okay? The actual, posting is not expensive, but I've learned very quickly that if you want to do it properly, it takes a ton of your time, and time is money, right? So the mass, right? There's a bunch of different things you can be doing there. Let's talk about SOI. What you're trying to do here is maintain relationships. We hear this all the time where you meet somebody and you haven't talked to them in years. As a salesperson, that should never happen. Anybody that you should be touching base with. What could you be doing? How do you stay top of mind? How do you reach out to them and maintain that relationship? You can be doing newsletters. You could be doing 1 to 2 times calls annually, right? You could be doing events, meaning you go to an event or you invite these people to an event. You buy a table somewhere. It happens all the time. Join a club, right? What does that mean? I belong to a golf club. I'm a big golfer. I invite people all the time to go golfing that I know like to golf. And it keeps me in front of them. Not every year, I won't take somebody every year, but every couple of years I reach out, they take me to their club or wherever, I take them to mine, maintaining that relationship. Staying active in the community, okay? These are things that people know you. If you're active in the community, it goes a long way. There's a handful of different things within the SOI bucket you guys can be doing. You need to get creative and think of it, but staying top of mind. This list, if you guys are gonna look at ratios, like I'm gonna give you my numbers, right? In the mass, my mass is the state of Michigan. That's who I could sell a house to when I was selling homes. The SOI bucket was big as well. I'm from Michigan. I have a big family. This was maybe, a couple thousand people, 1,000, 1,500 people that, it sounds like a big number. Oh my God, that's a big number. But if when you sat down and started writing out names, you'd put 300 to 400 names very quickly onto a piece of paper. Think about all the people you went to school with, right? All the people that are at your church, all the people that you've played sports with. It's a lot of people throughout your life that you've come in contact with that know you. And your VIPs is much smaller. When I started this, my 3rd year in business, this was about 50 people. Okay, now what is your VIPs? Anybody you've done a deal with, anybody that's referred you a deal, okay, or an influencer, somebody that knows you very well. Like I always tell young people this, they're in their 20s and they're having a hard time selling. Get on the phone with the dads, the moms that you grew up with their parents, or their kids, I'm sorry, and these are professionals, and have a conversation with them, right? Hi, Mr. Thomas, this is, Dustin from, Rachel's middle school. All right. Oh my God, how you doing? How have you been? I'm putting down a list of people that I believe are very influential in our neighborhood. And I just got into real estate, and I just wanted to let you know, if you need anything, or any of your family or friends need anything, I would love a shot. I know you probably already have great relationships in that field, but I would love a shot if I could get one. Now, think of yourself as a 40, 50, 60-year-old parent, and your friend and your kid's friend called you and had that sincere conversation. I would give him a shot, right? I would say, man, that's a hard conversation to have. And the biggest mistake that newer agents make all the time is they try to act like a big shot. I can get it done for you. I can do anything, right? I've done these. They start kind of lying and trying to fake it. And it's like, I'm new to this, but I'm at a great company that can help me get anything done. And I promise you, I will work really hard, if I don't know the answer, to find out the answer. And I have a great team behind me to help me. But I'm just looking for a shot to break in, and I want to make this my career. Those conversations are important if you don't have a VIP list. Now, let's fast forward 13 years later, guys. The 27-year-old Simon, those were the conversations I was having, to the 40-year-old Simon. This VIP list is up to 450 people right now. It's a referral base of $40 to $50 million a year in sales by just accident, okay? So that's what you're working towards. But it took 13 years to build that, okay? So what are you doing with your VIPs? I always say, do the things that you're doing with your SOIs and some. Have these people over for barbecues, right? Like hosting them. Hosting them is important. At your house, at your club, at an event, you buy a table. These are the people you're inviting, right? What else are you doing? I know that you and your kids and your family play hockey and you love hockey. Maybe I invite you to a Red Wings game. Maybe, I'm never missing your birthday. And these ones you're giving them, you're actually sending them a bottle of wine. These are people you've made money with, or people that have sent you referrals. Very important. Now, let's talk about referrals, okay? Referrals are important because a lot of times people think I have to close the deal, okay, and that's considered a referral. No, if somebody thought of you, they go into your VIP. So let me give you an example. Somebody's in your SOI. You walk into a restaurant, and that restaurant, you see somebody you haven't seen in a couple years, right? And you walk up to them, they walk up to you. How you doing? What's been going on? How are your kids? Where are they at? What's up? You have that little 2-minute conversation. At the end of it, the person you're talking to says, I told my sister about you. I see you're doing great in real estate. She's going to call you. Now, at that moment, what do? What I would do was I'd say, thank you. Do you want me to call them, or are they going to call me? They're going to call you. I appreciate it, Dustin. That means a lot. I would email myself. It'd be a Friday night. I would not expect you to turn everything off and go write your note right then and there and do all this stuff. You're out, you're having fun. But what you can do is grab your phone, email yourself. Dustin told his sister about me. Now, you're in the office on Monday. One of your daily routines, which is another training we're gonna do, is going through all of your emails. You remember, oh yeah, Dustin told his sister about me. Pull out a handwritten card, pull out a note. Dustin, thank you for thinking of me. If your sister calls me, I will make sure to treat her like family and take care of her. I really cannot thank you enough for thinking of me. What just happened now, guys? He gets a card in the mail, right? I don't know where he lives. You know where he works. There's a way to track him down. You better track him down. He gets that card in the mail. Sister never calls. He's telling his sister, you got to call Simon. You got to call Simon. Okay? And now he's working for you. She never calls. It doesn't matter. Dustin thought of you. He feels bad his sister never called you. And now he's out there for the next handful of years always thinking about you. Okay, another very big thing with the VIPs, 2x per year. I give them gifts. These are small, $10 to $25. You know, it's March, April, they typically get something from us. And in holiday season, they typically get something from us. These are the people, if you had 50 of them, they're the ones that are getting their haircuts. They hear so-and-so needs insurance. I'm quoting insurance right now. They're looking to the person to the left of them. They don't even know them and say, you need to call my buddy Simon. He's the best insurance agent. Or he's the best realtor. These are your bird dogs. These are your soldiers. These are the people that are out there wanting people to use you because you're taking care of them. You're supporting them, you care about them, and you're helping them with their businesses. You're referring them. The bigger this VIP list gets, the more money you make, right? So what's the goal? Mass, meet people, get in front of people you've never met before. Start a relationship with them with your SOI. Build a relationship with them. You might never sell them anything. They may never refer you, but you're always touching base with them. To then your VIPs, okay? The bigger this gets, the more money you make. It's pretty simple. Again, though, there's a lot of things you need to be doing. When you get good at this, guys, your phones will never stop ringing. You will wake up every day with more and more stuff to do. I always say get busy, all right? The reason why there's a lot of people who are not busy in the sales world, especially 100% commission where I come from, is because they're thinking about how to sell a home. They're concentrating on the contract. They're concentrating on what the contract says. Go learn how to get your phones to ring, and everything else will follow. When you have a contract, and you have somebody that wants to write a contract, oh my God, I've never done one before, right? You have a team behind you. If you're at the right brokerage, if you're at the right insurance agency, if you're at the right mortgage company, these guys will help you. Don't try to do it on your own, but that's why you have a company and a team behind you, because when you do get the fish on the line, you will have support. And the more that you get of those calls and the more deals, the more transactions you get, the quicker you can start to do these deals. I always think about my first transaction. That purchase agreement took me an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, I got to the point within 90 days, I could do a purchase agreement within 12 to 15 minutes. That came with repetition, right? But it was a process, and it took a long time. A lot of our people I've seen, they get into this business and they do not want to start building relationships until they're 100% confident in getting the until they understand the whole entire deal start to finish. I've been a part of thousands of transactions. Every month I get things I've never seen before. You're never going to learn this business until you start getting your phones to ring. So when we get new agents that start Adobe, when we get people at our companies that are in a rut, we revert back to this stuff, get back to the basics. An hour a day, 2 hours a day, set up the systems and the processes. Last thing I want to talk about is time and money. So when you're talking about setting up systems and processes, you have money, okay, and you have time. Now, in the beginning, when you're brand new to your field, a lot of times you don't have money, but you have all the time in the world. Meaning, you're not busy, but you're kind of broke. You can't spend money on MASH. You can't spend any money on Red Wings tickets. You can't join a club, right? But you have all the time in the world, right? So what does that mean is when you're building your mass bucket, your SOI bucket, your VIP bucket, pick things that you can stay consistent with. For example, I'm going to send out 2,000 I'm going to farm 2,000 houses a month. Well, that's 3,000 a month, guys. You don't have any money to do that. You're going to do it for 2 months, and you're going to quit. It takes a cold person who's never met you before 18 to 50 times for that person to recognize who you are. Think about that. So if you're going to farm a neighborhood, let's just say that's the example here, okay? You're going to, one house, equals $1. I'm going to do 2,000 households, okay, which equals $2,000. That's what I'm going to do. Well, you better be prepared to 18 to 50 times before you get a deal out of that neighborhood. Think about that. Do the math. That's $36,000 to $100,000 before you might even get somebody to recognize you. So let's do this. I love farming. I think it's a great idea to farm. But let's go down to 200 households, right? So, which equals $200 times 18 to 50 times. You're talking about $3,600 to $10,000 annually before you get a deal. Pretty good. Before they recognize you. A lot of people just do farming and stop. Let's go one step further. Let's go to that local neighborhood, that neighborhood that you're farming. Let's go to their schools, the public schools, the elementary, the middle, the high schools. Hey, what can I sponsor here? What can I be doing to get involved? I want to help out. I'm a local realtor. I'm a local insurance man. I'm a local mortgage person. What can I be doing to get involved with these schools? Oh, you could sponsor in our magazine at $75, whatever it is. Well, now you're in their mailbox because you're farming to them, 12x annually. Now you're in their schools, right? What else could you be doing? Maybe you go to the churches. What can I be a part of? These are not expensive things. Now you're in the church. Then let's relate this to you get a listing, right? Now you have a sign. You're doing open houses in that neighborhood. All this stuff is brand recognition. You're checking the boxes to hit that 18 to 50x of people seeing you. Now they're getting out of their cars like, oh man, that's the guy that's in our mailbox. When they're going to school, they go to church, they open up the flyer. Man, this is the guy that's in my mailbox. Repetition. They start to recognize you. This is the guy that does all the insurance with our neighbors. This is the guy that's refis everybody in our neighborhood. This is the guy that sells everybody our houses in the neighborhood. Then you start making money, and what do? You go from 200 households, okay? You go from 200 households to 400. So right now you're farming here and you just grow bigger and bigger. That's how you grow your business over a 12 to 15 year, 20 year period. I always think about 20 years. It takes 20 years to really get your business rocking and to the point where you're like, I got this. 10, 12, 15 years. It's a process. You'll go broke in the beginning. Everybody wants to skip the process and go right to making money. Let's start small. Let's start with a budget. Let's build out these buckets and what you're going to be doing. And again, I need to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to start running and eating, 1,000 calories and running 5 miles a day. It doesn't work that way. I'll tell you what though, I could start walking 2 miles a day and go from 3,000 calories a day down to 2,500 for the next 2 weeks. Then I can go to a run. Maybe I'll start running a mile and going to 2,000 calories and then work my way down. And by day 90, I'm running 5 miles, right? So what would I be doing if I was you and I had none of this stuff in place? I would be doing one thing in the mass, one thing in the SOI, one thing in the VIPs. Let's get it going. Then within a couple weeks, a month, when you feel comfortable, let's add one more thing to each bucket, okay? Now you get 3 to 4 things in each bucket that you're consistently doing, your business is gonna be off to the races, okay? So you have time and money. This is typical. And as you start to grow your business, you will have more money and less time. So now what do? You do things that cost more money that save you time, like a Zillow, like maybe upping your farming bucket. Maybe you're joining a club, which you get a ton of business from. If you're not there asking people for business, for me, it's been a great thing. I don't use it for that. I didn't join it for that, but it put me in front of the right people, but it's very expensive. Then the third phase is you have a ton of, this is what you're trying to get to. You have a ton of money and time. This is when you start delegating, building a team. I'm not even going to get into levels. This is level 1, level 2, level 3. I'm not even going to get into level 3. That's going to be more training down the road for the guys that are like, I'm making a ton of money. I don't have a second in my day. How do I get more freedom? How do I start enjoying this? And that's a whole nother process. But this happened within 7 years, guys, going from 1 to 3 by really honing in on what we do here and really being consistent and really anal about what I do. Really, like, you know, I got to a point where I could not stop doing this stuff. I felt like anxiety if I didn't get my stuff done and put these things in place, because I knew I was going to feel it financially. So guys, this is something that I wanted to share with everybody. We put this in play every single day here at our companies. We've grown to a $400 million a year sales from literally just almost 13 years ago, selling dollar properties, praying to close a $10,000 house to make $1,500, to now doing millions of dollars a year in revenue between our businesses with a strong team. And it all starts here. It all starts here, and we still do this to this day, and it's how we're gonna get to billions of dollars in sales. So hopefully this works for you guys. Thank you everybody for tuning in. There is a PDF you can download that will help you execute a lot of these things I'm talking about, all of these things I'm talking about immediately. I really appreciate your time and looking forward to the next course.